What the fuck? Wait, what the fuck? What? He has to treason this card and then I win? I think this card ticks after he treasons it and then it takes away those 4 and this card loses the treason value. And then I win? LOL? Wait, if he ropes, does he win? It has to treason this. Okay. Alright, feels good. This guy just like... Hi, I am Simple, and this is my Spies Archetype guide. I made a deck guide for this specific deck, though there was 2 small changes since, but I wanted to make a guide in general for the Spies Archetype because, for one, I don't think that I went into enough gameplay mechanics specifically in the deck guide itself, and I want to make a guide that if you want to make your own Spies deck or if you play somebody else's Spies deck, it should help you out. Because I think there's a lot of skill when it comes to playing Spies, more than most decks, and I think that the interactions between the cards are really interesting and cool, so I wanted to talk about them. I also want to talk about the issues with the deck and why it's not top tier right now, and I really hope that that doesn't deter you from playing the deck because, like I said, it's a challenge to play and it's a lot of fun when it works well. And yeah, so I hope you try it out and have fun. So the big 2 issues, though I don't know if I should use the word issue for the first one, is that it's math intensive and then it's RNG. We're gonna do a small math class really fast, if you'll indulge me. Mostly, this isn't to say that you're bad at math and this is how you should do math, but it's mostly to give an example of why math is hard in this deck. And I mess it up all the time. So I'm going to go over 2 methods of doing math for the strength swing. So the first method is the finding strengths method. Now this is the obvious method. In this method, what you do is you subtract the strength that they're going to lose whenever you pull with Calviet, and then you add the strength that you're going to gain whenever you pull with Calviet. The biggest thing when doing this method is that Cantarella works in a different way than other spy cards, which is that she gains strength whenever she's spying, so she'll be 12 strength in general on their side, and then whenever you pull her back, she's going to be 6 strength on your side. So whenever you do the math, you want to subtract 12 from their side, and then add 6 to your side for Cantarella. All the other cards don't interact this way, so you're fine on the math on the rest of it. The other method that I wanted to talk about was suggested to me in my Twitch chat, and I've been trying it recently, and I kind of like it. But this is the finding differences method. Basically, what you do is you find the strength swing that you need to win, and then you add up the total strength swing. So how this works is that you take their total strength and you subtract your strength from it. Then you have the strength swing that you need. Then you add up the total strength swing. So the way that you do that is you add up 12 plus 6 for Cantarellas, because like I said before, they're going to lose 12 and you're going to gain 6, so it's 18. That strength swing is worth 18. 10 for Joachim, 4 for the smaller spies, and that's how you should think of it. It's just double for everything else besides Cantarella. If you decoy Cantarella, she's going to be 24 strength swing, because if you decoy her, she goes up to 9 strength, and then she has 15 strength on their side of the board because she gets 6, right? So 24 strength swing with Cantarella. So you add up all those numbers, and if the total strength swing is higher than the needed strength swing, then you win. Okay, so that's enough math. The next big issue with this deck is RNG. So the way that you have to play this deck in all of your games is managing RNG. You don't want your emissaries to pull an ambassador into a blank board. That's a huge waste of an ambassador. But that's really easy to deal with, because before you play an emissary, you should always play one unit on your side of the board. That's why in my specific deck I have a Spearman, or you could use a Roach for that purpose, or you could use Operator for that purpose. So before you play Emissaries, you want at least one unit on your side of the board, no matter what that unit is. That way, if you do pull an Ambassador, it's not dead. It has something to give 12 strength to. There's another big issue with Emissaries and pulling. Well, I should say that Engineers are the same way. Emissaries can pull Engineers too, and if you have nothing on your side of the board to Engineer, then you have a dead card. Now, there's one other issue with what they can pull, which is Brigades, and that is if you pull a Brigade and you have 0 spies on the other side of the field, obviously you'll have 1 spy because you just played an Emissary, but your Brigade is only going to be 9 strength. Whereas in a lot of games, my Brigades become over 20 strength. So 9 strength versus 20 strength, it's a huge waste of a card. It's a huge waste of a Brigade. So unfortunately, this is just going to have to happen sometimes, but the best advice I can give to managing this specific scenario is that you should play an Ambassador before you play an Emissary. So in my previous guide, I said you should mulligan Ambassadors. I don't think that's true anymore. I think that you should keep one Ambassador in your hand, and then the round should go, you play a unit on your side, and then you play an Ambassador on that unit, and then you play an Emissary. So that way, if Emissary pulls Ambassador, it'll hit the unit. If Emissary pulls Brigade, it'll be at least 12 strength, which is better than 9. It sort of mitigates it just a little bit better, but still not great. It's still not great to pull Brigade super early. To that end as well, there's been games where I just pass in the first round without playing anything. If you watch my stream, you'll see this and you'll be like, what the fuck? And it's probably because I have Emissaries in my hand and Ambassadors in my hand, or one Ambassador in my hand, gold cards, maybe Decoy, maybe a Cantarella, and like no bodies to actually play on my side of the field, right? If I don't have any bodies on my side of the field and it's the first turn, I'll generally just pass rather than taking the chance of playing an Emissary and hoping that it pulls a Spearman or something like that. I think the risk is way too high to not just pass in the first round if you've got nothing to play on your side of the field. So let's talk about Cantarella. Cantarella has a really interesting mechanic where she pulls a card and then you can click on that card to send that card to the very bottom of the deck. Now, this makes Cantarella a very interesting way to pull cards, which is that you need to think, you can't just think about what cards you want for the matchup. You have to think about what card you don't want at the bottom. So if you pull a Brigade, maybe you don't want the Brigade in your hand right now because you know that Emissaries and First Lights can pull Brigades and you have that in your hand. But maybe you don't want that Brigade at the bottom, because if it's at the bottom, First Lights can still pull it, but Emissaries probably won't pull it. Unless you have no more bronze units, Emissaries pull from the top of the deck. So if you put that Brigade at the very bottom of your deck, the chance that you're going to see that Brigade in the future is probably pretty slim. So I encourage you to keep Brigades. That goes the same for like gold cards and stuff. If you think, I don't think I need this gold card right now, but you might need it in the future, you should keep it anyway. You can use this to your advantage. If you pull a card that you think is going to be dead in this matchup, then that's awesome, because you can put that card at the bottom of your deck and then you'll just probably not see it for the rest of the game. A good idea before you use Cantarellas is to deck thin with Emissaries. Be sure to use the tips I gave before on playing Emissaries so that they're not wasted. But you can use Emissaries to deck thin so that hopefully Cantarella pulls what you want, and you're not in a situation where you have things in your hand that you don't want at the bottom of your deck, but you don't necessarily want in your hand either. Okay, so now there's 2 cards that have the same issue with RNG, and that is Joachim and Vilgefortz. Basically, you need a Gwent tracker for this deck. I'll put a link in the description for Gwent tracker. The way that you mitigate Joachim and the way that you mitigate Vilgefortz, their RNG so that they don't pull a dead card, is that you go through Gwent tracker and you make sure that the card that they could potentially pull won't just be dead in the game. I think it's beneficial to use Vilgefortz in particular in the later rounds because there's less cards that he can pull later on. So just keep that in mind. So let's talk about tools really fast. Despite your take on outside tools, I highly encourage you to use tools with this deck. At least one. You definitely need Gwent Tracker. You need Gwent Tracker to keep track of what an Emissary could pull. You need to keep track of what Vilgefortz could pull. Joachim as well. If you have Joachim, you need to make sure that you're always looking at the possibilities, because there are a lot of possibilities with this deck. So Gwent Tracker is a must in my opinion. You can also use a calculator for the math part if you're not particularly good at math. I've been doing it recently. I don't know how I feel about it really. I think maybe it's like shitty. Maybe it's shitty to use a calculator, but with this deck and specifically, I think the math puts you at a disadvantage whenever you're playing this deck compared to other decks. Then again, it's not like the enemy is going to be using a calculator whenever you're playing against them, so maybe they're going to be worse at the strength swing than you are. But I don't know. Use a calculator if you want. The last thing I'm going to touch on, which I touched on in my other deck guide, is the approach to spies themselves. The best way I think to play spies, and what I think that people aren't aware of enough right now, is that they think that John Calviet ends up being a dead card most of the time, or potentially like not very useful. And I think the biggest reason why that is because people end up playing their small spies and big spies together, and then they end up being able to outshrink somebody anyways without even calvieting, which is crazy that this deck can even do that. But if you end up with Brigade near the end of the turn rather than near the beginning, and you have a lot of spies on their side, your Brigade are going to be super huge, and they can probably keep up with most decks' strength. So without you even pulling with Calviet. So Calviet ends up dead in some games. That's fair, but I think there's an approach to spies that prevents that from happening as often, and it can make you, if you have this perspective on spies, it can help you out a lot in the future with using Calviet in good ways. In my opinion, the way that you should do this is that you should play your small spies. You have 3 emissaries and 3 ambassadors, so 6 small spies that you can play before you play your big spies, or after. I think that you should, in a round, you should try to commit to either a big spy play or small spy play. If you want to maybe deck thin to get good Cantarella cards, or maybe deck thin because you're looking for operator or something specific, maybe you commit small spies to this round. That way you can have, hopefully, if RNG doesn't completely screw you, hopefully you'll get Brigade near the end of this round and be really strong, not have to use Calviet at all. And then in the next round, you can use Calviet on your big spies, which is going to be a much bigger strength swing. I talk about this concept in my other guide, maybe better, I'm not sure, but if you commit 1 round to small spies and 1 round to big spies, and think about it like this, think about like small spies shouldn't need Calviet, big spies should need Calviet, then Calviet is much more useful. I think this puts the deck in a 2-phase perspective, which is really useful because you want to win 2 out of 3 rounds. Unfortunately, this doesn't always happen this way. You should strive for it. So if you think about it as playing small spies with Brigade and large spies with Calviet, large spies being Joachim, Cantarellas if you've operated them, fake Siri, any spies that are going to be a huge detriment to have on their side at the end of a round. Whereas 6 2-string spies won't be a huge detriment, especially considering what those spies actually do. Whereas Ambassador gives 12 strength to your side, so it's basically a 10 strength swing without even having to pull with Calviet for that card. Emissaries can pull Brigades, which I said before could be really fat, even with just small spies. So yeah, so that's the guide. I hope it's really helpful. I hope that you guys try the Spies archetype. Hopefully in the future, CDPR will give us some buffs, and we'll be at an advantage because we already know how to play Spies. So yeah, have fun with it. Make your own decks, and yeah, I hope you guys have a good one.